Hello, and a very warm welcome to the Sacred Womb podcast, where we talk about all things to do with befriending our menstrual cycle, deeply healing both our feminine and masculine aspects, and how we can indeed utilise our cyclical nature as a natural spiritual pathway that's encoded within our bodies. I'm your host, Melanie Swan, and you can also go to thesacredwomb.com for more information and loads of fantastic free resources. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Sacred Womb podcast. We're on episode 42 now, and this episode we've got April McMurtry, and she is from The Moon is My Calendar. So April's going to talk to us all about new moon mandalas and is going to guide us through making one. But before we start, I wanted to welcome you to the new year. To be honest, I'm not really feeling the new year because I'm recording this just at the end of my menstrual cycle. So really, I have a new year every cycle, as perhaps you feel that as well. And I'm just wondering if anyone else feels like they don't really start a new year until a bleed has finished and the new cycle begins. So I've not really been with these New Year messages. I've been a bit like, whatever, I'll bleed. I have my own cycle. Anyway, so had a good rest at Christmas, and something popped at Christmas, which I'm delighted to announce on the podcast. The Sacred Womb shop is now open. So a couple of products in there to start off, one of which is a guided practice to help you clear the womb from past lovers. And another is a daily practice to connect with the womb. I'm going to be adding more to the shop so that you have easily accessible, downloadable products to help you connect with your womb, befriend your menstrual cycle, heal your womb center, and really start to implement this stuff in daily life. So that's the Sacred Womb shop, and it's going to be growing in time as I go with my flow and birth these little projects. So if you do have any requests of products that you'd like to have, then do let me know. There is a free cycle tracker coming out very, very soon, which I've done in collaboration with Helen Birch. She's an amazing artist. So watch out for that. If you're subscribe to my newsletter, you'll get notification of that. All right, so what's happening today? We've got April McMurtry. So let me tell you a little bit about April. She's the founder of The Moon is My Calendar journal and creatress of the New Moon Calendar Journal. She's also a visual artist, mother, teacher, and a creative lunar coach. Her work reflects her passion for nature-based cycles, personal mythologies, and symbolism. And April has more than 15 years' experience working in education as a classroom teacher, workshop facilitator, and program coordinator at home and abroad. April loves to support people on the path to growth and transformation, and her formal education includes a BA in art, history, and an MA in teaching. So she lives in San Francisco Bay and is a mother of 2 daughters and a delightful new kitten. So April's going to talk to us all about new moon mandalas. She's going to tell us what exactly a new moon mandala is, how she got started making them. She shares her creative process and how she had to let go of perfectionism to get it printed, and just how it teaches her and continues to teach her as she engages with this calendar. She really does explain in a very simple way how to do one of these mandalas, and for me anyway, it helped me let go of that, I'm not an artist, so how can I draw a mandala type of belief. So I was able to do a mandala whilst I was speaking to her on the podcast. So if you're up for that, get a pen and paper, and she helps us get into the zone and do a mandala whilst we're listening. I've detailed lots of the process on the blog post for this. So if you go to thesacredwomb.com, Moon Mandalas, That's a sacredwomb.com/Moon Mandalas. Link is in the show notes if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. And you'll find like pictures of moon mandalas there that April has drawn. Not that we have to follow that, but it's nice to kind of have some sort of anchor. And also the process of what she recommends is laid out on that post as well, as are all the links that she mentions. So anyhow, I'll stop waffling on now and let you listen to April. Hey, April, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Melanie. Thanks for having me.
Today, I know we're going to make a moon mandala, but I just want to put that in context and talk to you first and find out all about it.
Great.
Could you introduce yourself for us? I know I've already introduced you, but it sounds so different when someone introduces themselves. And what are you up to right now?
That's such a good question. It's, being the month of December and winter, and so much of what I teach with the lunar cycle has to do with these seasons and being in the season of winter and really honoring that. I feel like each year is this opportunity, and each lunar cycle is an opportunity. How do I honor this winter time without overdoing it or without just continuing to go forward full speed ahead? So I'm cozying up. I'm a mom. I have 2 daughters, and I live close to 4 generations of my family. So it's a bit unusual in, at least where I'm from, I'm in Northern California, to have so much family around. And so my life is really full of family and creativity. And I taught in the classroom for many years, and I enjoy being a teacher so much, and I'm really embracing how that can be shared on the internet, online. Yeah.
Okay, so how did you start with the moon is my calendar? Because I'm aware these things can look really lovely and they're finished article and, I made a calendar, but I'm aware there's so much work and backstory and journey that goes into that. So could you give us a little taste of that?
Yeah, definitely. It took me really letting go of perfection and perfectionism to even get the first calendar printed, because there was always going to be something more to do about it or not being quite ready yet. And so when I look back, I realized the year before, so I guess 2013, I had started to hand design a calendar. It was circular, but it didn't have all the moon phases and it wasn't all quite there yet. I put a lot of effort into it, but it never came to be. And I sort of set that down until the next year when it felt like, it's time to have a calendar again. Maybe this time around, it'll, just those first attempts. So I have all these sort of drafts of things. And then the calendar itself, had been a long process of wanting a tool that was both a journal and that had the cycle of the moon and that was circular. And so things just did kind of come together at a point after having a practice of meeting on the new moon and wanting a tool, sort of a companion place to put the writing and the learnings and sort of hold all of that experience. So that, it came into being, and just having to let go of this first draft, this first time around, this first printing isn't going to be what it's going to be in the future, but to start something and then allow it to unfold and evolve and see where it lands and where it goes in the world, And I had no idea when I started. I just needed it for myself.
Okay.
I wanted I love calendars, and I always have. And like I said, I was a school teacher, and every year when it was time to get school supplies and new calendars, and I'd usually make my own sort of teacher book, planner book combination. So I had many years experience of making calendars, but that were very linear, that didn't embrace the cycle of the moon in this way.
Okay. So now I'm getting a picture. So you're a teacher, very organized. I'm thinking making calendars and loving charts and sticking things in and putting some order to things and recording. And then you just can't find one that suits you, and you keep making presumably roughly the same thing every year. And okay, so you decided to sort of refine it and print it.
Yeah, that was a whole journey of when you have something that you want to print and having it be a non-standard size. So it's not like a standard printing where you can go online and get things printed on demand and all this, which is really nice if it's standard size. I feel like that would, it would make my life a lot easier. It'd be more convenient or something, but I really, it's a square size. I like the square with the circle, that geometry. So the printer that I first went with during the second printing, they went out of business. They closed up shop after being around since the 60s. They printed the political posters in Berkeley, and the original founders were retiring, and there wasn't someone to take over the print shop. And so during the second printing, the account was being transferred, and I'm like, have to roll with each of the things that presents itself, because there's a way through. There's a way to make it work and to get through. And, just that learning of not stressing out when there's these curveballs, of figuring out how to then flow with the curveballs.
Would it be fair to say that the calendar taught you in a way?
Yes.
You sort of produced it and then it gave it back.
It continues to, the lessons that come through this work are the lessons that I feel like I need to be learning in this lifetime. And so it's presented itself in this way of creating a calendar. And so what I learn along the way are the things that really are in line with the things that no matter where I would be in the world, I would need to be engaged in these kinds of lessons. Yep.
The moon's pull. So before we go any further, what I'd like to do is just started doing this on the podcast, just a quick cycle check-in from us both, so that, those listening kind of know where we're at and different vibes maybe they can pick up. And it's really normal for us women to discuss where we're at and what we need and where our energy levels are. So I'll start. I'm day 15, and I felt myself ovulate last night. And it was a contraction and then a relaxation. And in the contraction, I thought, what's going on? Because it feels like a very, very mild period cramp. It's not a cramp, but it's just a sensation that feels very like that. And it's very mild. And I was a little bit grumpy about it. And I thought, what's going on? I'm in the middle of my cycle. I'm not going to get my period, or that shouldn't be coming. I've got things planned. And then I don't know why I forget, but I do forget. And I glanced at my cycle tracker that's on my desk, and I was like, I just ovulated. I just popped an egg. That was awesome. So I felt it. But this ovulation phase, I'm feeling very grounded, had a lovely Christmas time, feel very resourced. And sometimes I can kind of fly quite high when I'm ovulating, but this time I'm going steady. I'm going for a marathon pace rather than a sprint pace this time. So anyway, that's me. Where are you at, April?
Well, today is day 20, and I use the new moon calendar and journal also as my cycle tracker. So I have the days there as a reminder, because why do I forget? This is the question of, as we are cyclical beings, and so we go through cycles, and so we're always in a different place in reference to all these other things and in the internal cycle of menstruation. And yet, do I think that's going to change? Or do I think, when I glanced at the moon journal and I looked and I thought, okay, this is this crossover day going into the premenstrual, going into premenstruation. And I was like, but I don't want to be there yet. I still want to be in this other place. And I know that the resistance, that any kind of that resistance just can cause more of a struggle, or more of so just noticing this resistance of not yet, I'm not ready yet, I'm not ready to go into this. I still want, like you said, just still to ride high. And yet during ovulation, I actually had a fever, and I thought the body ache was like, wow, this must just be extreme ovulation day. Because sometimes I'll get an achy, lower back or something, or achy a little bit. But I did have, a fever. I ended up catching something. And so I had this time in bed to really think about ovulation. And I was really just going deep into this world of, here's this egg that I know is not going to become a child. I've had children and I'm not having children. And yet my body is like, well, here's something that could become a life. Here it could become something. And so really reflecting on, wow, maybe for the remainder of however long I continue to menstruate for, to almost, I know this sounds very strange, but it just sort of came to me without thinking, those things.
Yeah.
It was like, name that project, name that egg, name that creative something that you're birthing that's not going to become a life in terms of a child, but that's something that comes into the world through this creative cyclical process. And so that it's not for nothing that I'm continuing to cycle, that there is, to give some kind of almost a purpose to that egg. Like this cycle is going to be about creating whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
So that ovulation then becomes, oh, here's this egg, then that I'm going to be putting my energy, my physical, emotional, whatever energy into this, whether maybe it's a podcast, like this egg is going to be about creating this amazing podcast. And that's where the energy is going into, if that.
Yeah, it does make sense. It totally does make sense.
So
I think it's would be unusual for me anyway, to be lying in bed when I ovulate, because I would only do that if I'm ill as well. It sounds like a really cool opportunity to really tune into that process. That it sounds like very interesting to me that you've been able to tune into ovulation so specifically and then come out with, this egg is for. So yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah. And that's just starting. I feel like each lunar cycle and each menstrual cycle, there is some, a gem of wisdom that's there to be slow enough and to listen to it. And right, sometimes it takes being sick in bed to be so slow that, well, what am I, to actually use that time to be able to tune in and to really listen. So I'm happy for that insight. So see where how that unfolds.
Yeah, cool. So what is a moon mandala? I mean, I have a sense of when I say moon mandala, I think, and that's why I contacted you. So I thought, my body had a response to that. And I thought, I kind of think I know what that is. I get a sense of it and I could have a go myself, but I'd love to talk to you because when we've originated something and when we've brought something through, it's different talking to that person rather than reading something and getting the real essence of it. So that's what I'm interested in. And could you kind of describe and bring to us a moon mandala?
Yeah, it is open for interpretation. So I think that is part of the beauty of it, of what you're resonating with then comes into what you are creating. So there's a page in the New Moon Calendar and Journal that is for a moon mandala. And, this came out of a practice of creating collage just in a journal around the new moon with words and with images to come together to symbolize that moment of the new moon, of this of a new beginning, to help chart a course in a way. And it's really evolved over time. And each new moon, for my own personal practice, each new moon, I'll set aside time to create a mandala. And the word mandala is Sanskrit, and it roughly translates to circle. Okay. So there's all kinds of ways to shades of meaning of it. But it was really Carl Jung who used the mandala as a tool for discovery and as a tool for self-inquiry, investigation, and then interpretation into the psyche and into the development, personal development. So that's how mandala came to become this sort of art-making process that often is intuitive. I think other mandalas that we see are like the one that you're sitting in front of, which is this tapestry of that symmetrical coming outward from a central point. And then, almost like with a Zen doodle kind of repeating pattern going around. And with, coloring books and things that are all more available now, there's a lot of mandalas ones that are there too. Yeah. So I think in our minds, we can kind of put together all kinds of what we've seen and how we would see a mandala, and then to have a personal practice where you're creating it so that there's meaning for you and that there's symbols in there and that there can be words. There isn't really, you could follow a step-by-step process, I suppose. And yet just given a circle and allowing yourself to tune into what is it that I want to put in this circle can really be a symbol for what is it that I want to put into my life.
Yeah.
Like, what is it that I want to bring in and call in to this circle of my life? And this moment, around the new moon then is sort of that fertile ground for new beginnings and a chance to call in, whether it is a new habit or where it is sort of like a state of being or awareness that wants to be cultivated. And through creating this, any act where we're creating and using our hands, we're really engaging what could be in our vision or imagination and bringing it into the world.
Okay, I get it.
So that's can be that interaction of the process of this internal, whether they're wishes or desires, and then seeing then how to create something that you can then reflect on the whole cycle.
Yeah.
You could add to, it's sort of, sometimes when I talk to women, it's almost like they're asking for permission to be creative, that like, well, I don't know how to do this. I want to do this the right way, and I need permission. Or even saying like, I'm not an artist, so I don't make these things. And part of the work that I really want to inspire is to just that stamp of permission, like that you are a creative being by being alive.
Yeah.
And creating a mandala can be this personal practice that helps to tune into the cycle of the moon just by choosing to do it around the new moon and then seeing what takes shape.
Great.
Yeah.
I love it. So basically, draw a circle around the new moon and feel into my being what's inside that wants to express, what wants to come out this cycle. What do I want to create or let go of, or something, but just what is it that wants to flow out of my body onto the page? Oh, and hey, it kind of looks like this and like that, and maybe I add to it or change it over the month. And it gives me, the sense I'm getting as I talk to you is that I get some sort of visual for what's inside and some sort of inner landscape, but, visualized outside. And also, as I'm talking and imagining myself doing it, I can feel a flow of energy, a different flow of energy it's more than the breath. It's more than an energy flow that I can normally feel, but it's something that goes from the hand and it moves and creates something. And it's this kind of weaving of something. Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. I'm into it.
I love how you describe that too. The weaving, and even to cultivate that state of observation.
Yeah.
So instead of using, when we're in the critical mind or in the thinking rational mind, we can sort of judge, oh, I don't like how this looks, or this should go here. And we're kind of in that mode. And to be more in this lunar flow, then can have that kind of experience of, I'm watching as I create, and I'm sitting in awe of this. And so it even gives yourself that kind of, that nourishment or acceptance of, that we would maybe even for a child who is making their first marks on the page of like, wow, to be in awe of that, where it's not like, oh, I'm so great or this is so great, but it's awesome just to create those marks and color on the page and to have enough of a, it's almost creating a distance in some way to be the observer of that.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Do you want to try?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've had my pen top off for the last 5 minutes.
Already. And sometimes to have the theme might be there, you might know. And each lunar cycle, it might be like, this is so clear, and you might have an idea. And it can also help sometimes to, pull an animal card or an oracle card or some kind of a central theme. That's another way to work with it, but it doesn't have to be that way. It can just all come. This
feels lovely. I have to say, it feels lovely, and just feel very calm listening to you. And just like as starting this, I feel like I'm giving myself space to do it, and having a container in the circle and some sort of anchor connection with the moon. It's already starting my creative process off and some sort of flow. And I just feel very soft with the way you describe it. Like there's no expectations. Personally, I wouldn't describe myself as an artist either, although I can draw very adventurous stick men with amazing hair and always odd feet, which I love. So thank you for that. Thank you for setting the scene so beautifully so that I can go into this with ease. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. So just like you said, you have the pen or pencil in your hand, whatever tool that is, and to just, you can trace a circle, or in this calendar and journal, there's sort of like a watercolor ghost of a moon.
So I shall draw a circle.
Yeah. So if you have like a plate or a cup or something to trace the outline.
I don't, but I've done a wobbly circle.
Yeah, that works too. That works too. And then really, if we were sitting and this was the new moon time, there would be that unique kind of energy of that fresh beginning of a kind of allowing to go into that darkness or that void. So you could, if you wanted to, gently close your eyes and sort of have that meditation of there's all potential, and whatever the seeds that are wanting to be known, be tended to at this point in my journey. And just even asking the question of, can you show those to me? Can I have more access to understanding so that I can help, guide my path and guide my way on. And, even just setting an intention for the mandala of whether it is like what it is that may be revealed.
Okay.
And then you can just take, and like I said, in that state that you're feeling of as an observer and as a like allowing whatever it is to come through onto the page.
Okay.
And it can start out feeling like doodling or just following the line, allowing a line to start and to continue. With the circle, there's that central point.
When I closed my eyes and you were talking, I would had a very clear image. And I've got a couple of words as well.
And it's interesting sometimes, we can have that clear image and then interpreting it and trying to create. And I think that's where the gap sometimes when someone says, I'm not an artist, because I've got this idea, but then it turns out like my stick figure, that representation can have the energy of the thing, whether or not it looks photographically like whatever it may be.
I know when I look at this now, it's reminding me of a very clear picture I got in my being. When I've got a sound as well. That goes with it.
And so that's beautiful because when all of the senses are awake and when they're all on board, that's when art making and creative process can take us. The point is that it's healing. The point is that it takes us places. In itself is moving things through us.
Yeah.
And when all the senses are there, then it's really, an embodied experience of that movement to help create shifts. I think, that's what so many of us are, continuing to do work on ourselves to create those shifts.
Yeah. And to create those in an aligned way that are connected with ourselves I think it can be a bit of a challenge sometimes because of all of the noise. But just sitting here with you and focusing on this, just from that vision I got very clearly, I've realised something already. Something's already popped.
Yeah, and sometimes it comes with words, right? And sometimes it just comes as this whole package where it just like lands somewhere and resonates. And it's, and to be creating while you do that, then this is going to hold that frequency, it's going to hold that.
And do you have space for these in your calendar, like one every month?
Yeah, so that's the first page is the new moon mandala. Starts it off, because it starts it in a way where it's, again, not linear. We're not planning out a detailed, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to, and then I'm going to do this. And starting it out in this fluid way of exploration. And probably the second year with the calendar, I learned that there was many people who would skip over this page because they didn't quite know what to do.
Oh, I see.
So I'm glad we're having this conversation really because it's an invitation to sort of dance with that unknown.
I'm just smiling at what I've created. That feels a much more authentic way for me to start off my new cycle. And I do put dates in the calendar and I block out my next moon time. And I find if I do that too quickly and start planning too quickly out of moon time, I sort of skip over my lovely maiden phase that's just full of wonder and innocence. And I just railroad over that, which is not good for me at all because then it has a knock-on offence in the offence, I think that's the right word, in the premenstrual phase. So I loved doing stuff like this when I was younger. And I think to start my cycle like this feels very authentic.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, not skipping over that, it's interesting, I think, for each of us to be aware of, is there a part of the cycle that we skip over? Like, all right, I'm ready, I'm on to the next time. And to skip through that maiden phase of that, where there's that playfulness, where there's that like a freshness and the wonder before you really get down to business and really, like you said.
Yeah. It's such a sweet phase. And I find there's probably like a 3-day window where I can sort of float and flow. And if I can let myself do that, the rest of the month goes so much better and my energy levels are so much more steady. So, yeah, I'm going to start this practice.
And there's, because I know you're on Instagram, there's, I don't know if you've seen the account Mandalas for Mamas.
Oh, yeah.
Jennifer, yeah, she did a project of creating a menstrual mandala throughout her whole cycle. So every day.
Oh, wow.
It's interesting because you see that range. So if you were to create a mandala every day, and tune into these subtleties and tune into how am I feeling like that free floating, or am I feeling really structured with myself, or how that would show up on the page. She created these mandalas daily. So it's really interesting to see that the progression.
That would be a very interesting practice to do, to visualize it, because I've journeyed with it and charted with it, and there's all sorts of, you can dance with it and any expression you want, but I think to actually put pen to paper and sit down, that would be a great way to connect with the womb and just one's energy, one's state, and what do I need today, but not even asking those questions. I would just want to sit and flow, and that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to try it.
And giving that, and even saying like, it may only need 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think the introduction of another practice might certainly overwhelms me. And I'm guessing that anyone listening might think, oh God, I've got 700 things to do, and I don't really want the pressure of more things to do. But and I'm also imagining in my ovulation phase, I'll be like, meh, mandala, whatever. And
what was I thinking?
I'm off. I want to swim this morning for an hour. I've got so much energy. But I think even if I can tell myself a minute, and then if I want more, I could go more.
Yeah, just even doing that quick sketch. And I think that I feel like is part of really what I'm coming to with, riding this energy of each lunar cycle and of each menstrual cycle, and where those interact, and, how they cross over or feel maybe in opposition with each other, is to what are those core steady practices that do create steadiness. Because to really ride the waves is to go to some extremes, and so what is it that can then create a flow that can feel more steady? Stance of observation of, interesting, I'm going in this direction.
Yeah.
I'm being pulled in this direction.
Yeah, I'd like to be in this direction, but I'm seeming to go here. And, my mandala's very dark today, so I'm just going to just sit with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's lovely. That feels really simple and doable. And so that's it. You just keep going until you want to stop.
Yeah. And what I like to do is just, even with ones that are unfinished, because sometimes that is part of it, is really capturing the moment of being in the moment with where your energy's at, with where, if the moon is waxing or waning and you're feeling either that rising energy or that retreating energy, to be with that moment. And sometimes that window closes and you don't finish the thing, whether it's the mandala or something else. So I will just put this on. I have a little bedside table that's like an altar space with a candle, and I'll set this there to reflect on throughout the cycle. Because just like we change also our perception, what we can get as information from something visual, like you said, even in this moment, this is coming, something's coming through, something's coming clear. And it might not come through or come clear till later in the cycle, or even 6 months down the road where you look back and think, that's what I was going through.
Yeah.
I can see it now. And when we allow ourselves to make, in some way, this kind of a record, there are some, and with color, with a record to then be able to refer to make sense of parts of the journey that may not be clear in the moment.
Yeah,
that's
totally makes sense.
That's what these have really become for me.
Yeah, it sounds like they're like an anchor or reference points and containers for the whole process.
Yeah, and it's like, this is my this phase where I was really needing to balance out the solar and lunar energy. So all the mandalas had some kind of sun moon combination in different ways.
Yeah.
That was really, really a focused thing that the theme went on for many cycles in different ways. And I can look at that now with a perspective.
Do you find that as the more you do this, do you feel like that you not only connect to yourself, but something else, be it the moon or spirit or something else? Do you feel like you're working with something beyond you?
Yeah, I do. And whenever I am not feeling that, I remind myself of this is to connect with something greater where it allows whatever it is to just flow through. Mm-hmm. That's my state of flow in painting and in creating, is really surrendering. And so that whatever is coming through, when I first started painting, I wouldn't even show or sell my paintings or want it to be in that way because they were so personal. And there was something that came through that it was like I was not the author, mm-hmm. or I was not the one that made the thing. And so that experience of really sort of being in awe of, wow, I allowed this to come through me without having to claim or possess or kind of like, this is me.
Yeah.
So that even when I'm teaching now, that's this reminder of allow the teachings to come through and allow this to come through so I can have something to guide me that's outside of me, that came through me, that maybe the parts of myself that know it are buried or wanting to come to the surface. And so having a practice where they get to, they're not busy, like you said, with the noise or the things that can cloud our own intuition or our own knowing. It is a spiritual practice. It's something that awakens spirit. Maybe that's the way a spiritual practice, something that awakens the spirit so that the spirit can be, really guide in ways that the humanness sometimes can have all of the things that can block or get in the way of these expressions. So
yeah, beautiful. Beautifully put. Oh, it's also a very relaxing practice, I've realised. I feel very relaxed and speaking to you about it, just feel very flowy and relaxed. So, it's really obvious that we can do this anywhere with a pen and a paper, but I too am a fan of charts and diaries. Things, probably got one too many, but where can people get hold of The Moon is My Calendar?
So that's, the website is themoonismycalendar.com. And there's a shop on there and a blog with some resources, and I've made some videos recently. Yes, I've been wanting to for a while, and so those are up. It's a 4-part video series. Starting in the new year, I'm going to have a Moon Mandala circle. So every month, make a video and a teaching, a different kind of inspired way to create a mandala.
Okay.
So that over the year, there will be, a collection of teachings and an inspiration and just that feeling of doing something and sharing something together along this journey. So that is there. And then I share on Instagram is my main place for really, it's like a creative outlet. And that's at The Moon is My Calendar.
It's kind of fun, Instagram. It's got a very different energy than the other social media channels. I like it. I really like it.
I do. I feel like there's a genuineness of sharing real process and real, at least the corner of Instagram that I have come to explore, of really amazing people, amazing people doing amazing things, where it feels like a lot of that energy of uplifting, of like, let's continue to keep our practices up and our spirits up and our inspiration up and sharing that in a way. And so I like doing that too.
Yeah, it's great. It's where we met, actually. I saw your post starting to come up because I think I signed up to follow everything with sort of womb or moon in just to get myself going. And yeah, that's where we met. So yeah. So people can go to your website. I'll put the link in the show notes so people can find that nice and easily. And I'm looking forward to seeing your videos as well.
Yes. And there'll be more to come. It's just a matter of recording them, make them available. Mean. It's all inside. They're all there waiting to come out. So it's my pleasure, and it feels like the service to the moon, because there is something that's going to help bring us more into balance and more into harmony, and that is part of the lunar energy. And so the more that can be part of our conversations, just like our menstrual cycle, more of our part of our conversation, then it becomes more alive and more present. Yeah. So Yeah, I thank you
Absolutely.
for your work and having these conversations. I feel like it's really important.
It's a pleasure, and thank you. And I've thoroughly enjoyed today. And I think afterwards I'm just going to lie down, chill out. I find your voice very soothing, actually. Yeah. Okay, I think we're done. That feels like a natural ending. Thank you again for coming onto the podcast and sharing your wisdom and your hard work. I know there's a lot gone into this. And yeah, thanks so much, April.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, Melanie.
Bye.
Bye.
I really hope you enjoyed the podcast and that you got some useful tips out of it that can make a genuine difference in your daily life. And if you'd love to work deeper with this stuff, then do head on over to thesacredwomb.com, where you can sign up to receive the weekly newsletter and an invite to our private Facebook group, where you can share, learn and grow with like-minded women in a safe, supported space. Thank you so much for tuning in. Do leave us a rating, and your comments are very, very welcome. And I'll see you next time.